Hello and welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your host, Morgan. Now, in a couple recent videos, we looked at some stuff going on in Florida having to do with wastewater being pumped into Tampa Bay and the release of genetically modified mosquitoes. Well, today we're looking at Texas because a headline from the Texas Tribune crossed my way, and I think it's something that we really need to talk about here. The headline in question is Texas legislator advances bills to shield oil and gas from climate initiatives. So, obviously I would want to talk about that. So today we're going to read this short article and get a little ranty. So if you have thoughts, leave them in the comment section below. If you like the video, leave me a like. If you want more of this eco ranting, why don't you give me a subscribe? And don't forget to grab your snowflake drink of choice, and let's get into this. So before we jump into the article, this article was published on May 3rd, just so that we can keep into context kind of when this thing crossed my attention. So beginning of May, this is pretty fresh as of the time this is being recorded, and should still be fairly fresh as the time it gets posted. So let's hang in there. Two bills that were advanced by the Texas legislature this week attempt to protect the state's oil and gas industry from efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. What a frickin' opening sentence we have. They want to protect the oil and gas industry from efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I'm not entirely sure how much more clear the Texas state legislation can be. That's honestly a big middle finger to trying to protect the planet right there. But I mean, maybe I'm being a little unfair, because the article goes on to say, the House on Tuesday gave its final approval to Senate Bill 13, which would require state entities, including state pension funds and Texas' massive K-12 school endowment, to divest from companies that cut ties with or boycott fossil fuel companies. The legislation bites back at some Wall Street investors that have pulled financial support for the oil industry in an effort to curb carbon emissions that contribute to climate change. Okay, maybe I'm not being unfair. Spoiler alert, I did read this article prior to filming, so I can already tell you, I'm not being unfair here. This is Texas literally coming out and more than just putting their fingers in the ears and going la 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 la, can't hear you, climate change. No, this is them straight up saying we don't care. And I was honestly expecting to read this article and have it cite them wanting to do this because of, you know, that massive winter storm they had recently that left large swaths of the state without power because of their irresponsible power practices that they tried to blame on wind turbines. And that was absolutely ridiculous and inaccurate. I do have a video about that I will link down in the description below if you want more. No, they're literally angry that companies over in New York, which is traditionally a more liberal state, have decided that, you know what, this climate change thing is a big deal and perhaps we should invest in green energy and saving the goddamn planet that every single human being lives on. And this seems like a massive temper tantrum, because fossil fuels are not the way of the future, and we're one of the few countries still clinging to this idea that fossil fuels are going to save everything and green energy is a scam. Well, first of all, green energy is not a scam. It is the way of the future. First and foremost, fossil fuels are a finite fuel source to begin with, and the constant burning of fossil fuels that we do has absolutely contributed to the massive increase in the rate of climate change that we have seen since humans have discovered that we can burn the black stuff from the earth. And I just am appalled but unsurprised when I see headlines and articles like this at this point. There's a quote here from the state representative Phil King, who is unsurprisingly a Republican. Oil and gas is the lifeblood of the Texas economy. In the world of capital, there's a movement to deny funds to businesses that will not sign on to extreme anti-fossil fuel policy. If oil and gas is the lifeblood of your economy and science is indicating that we have a burning need to switch to green energy and sustainable fuel sources like wind, solar, all those fun things, perhaps your economy is going to go the way of the dinosaurs that you are currently pumping up from beneath the Earth's crust. Fossil fuels are one of these things that people get so upset about when you say that, yeah, drilling for oil and natural gas, coal mining, all that stuff needs to stop, and it needs to stop as soon as possible. We're not saying go close your oil field tomorrow. We're saying that if these fossil fuel companies actually start investing into green energy, they can still be on the forefront of the future and they can still exploit the masses by giving them energy. Just perhaps exploit the masses by monopolizing energy without also burning the planet to a crisp. And I get that I'm being a little unfair to some of the energy companies. I do understand that some of these oil companies have been investing in green technology. However, at least from what I've seen, a lot of it seems to be more signaling and more PR than actual serious scientific investment. But I would be very happy to be proven wrong on that one. And perhaps it's just my cynicism biasing me in that case. And I entirely recognize that. And perhaps I'm just angry from this article because it just boggles my mind that there are two bills that are very likely to pass in Texas, because it's Texas, where they want to punish companies for not wanting to kill the planet. But again, I do understand that the attitude in Texas, although I am hoping it is becoming a minority, as Texas is one of those states that's weirdly starting to mix the more liberal and conservatively minded minds or people and kind of shifting from one extreme towards a more middle. I understand that the overwhelming idea there is that climate change is not a thing. But that's not something we're getting into right now. This is about the state wanting to punish companies for no longer wanting to support fossil fuels. Because that just boggles my mind. Like, I don't get it. I mean, it does seem like it's more of a temper tantrum than anything else, and more digging their heels into the sand that fossil fuels aren't bad, fossil fuels are great, and climate change isn't real kind of thing. Let's continue. Let's read another paragraph or two here. The bill will be reviewed again in the Senate with the new amendment before it heads to the governor's desk. In the Senate, lawmakers on Tuesday sent a bill to Governor Greg Abbott that would bar local municipalities from banning natural gas as a fuel source when constructing new homes, subdivisions, and other buildings. It's a response to trends in California. Oh, I get it. I get it. Things that happen in California are bad, therefore we need to make sure they're banned in Texas. Let's finish this sentence though. It's a response to trends in California and other states where cities have, in climate action plans, required new homes or buildings to be heated with electricity rather than gas to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So, part of the response is because they're pissed off that companies over in Wall Street are choosing to no longer support fossil fuel initiatives and instead shifting towards the future, which is sustainable green energy. And they're pissed off that us liberal, demonic Californians would dare push climate initiatives that cut down on the burning of natural gas in homes that are built. Do you really have to throw that big of a temper tantrum that you're mad at two liberal states, so you have to just dig your heels in anyway? Because that's kind of what that paragraph reads to me as. Really, like, the state is responding to what California is doing. Well, the thing is, these climate action plans are the responsible thing to do because climate change is real. And climate change is pretty much the fault of the overburning of the fossil fuels that Texas and other states like Texas are trying so hard to protect. When fossil fuels are literally what's accelerating climate change, and we have the power to jump into the future and invest in the sustainable energy that can power the planet without needing to have this tired reliance on fossil fuels that are ultimately choking out the lifeblood of planet Earth. Back to the article. At least a dozen similar bills have been filed in states including Kansas, Minnesota, and Ohio. In Texas, however, House Bill 17 has been pushed as a response to the power outage caused by the February winter storm and resulting power crisis. The bill would prevent cities or municipalities from discriminating against natural gas by barring them from restricting the use of a utility provider. Oh, I get it. Because the power crisis actually had to do largely with these faulty natural gas lines and not green energy, they're afraid that cities are going to decide, oh, shit, maybe we need something more reliable than these natural gas lines that weren't designed to winterize properly. And perhaps we should have a backup and move away from natural gas since it already massively failed us. What the hell? It's like, I'm not surprised that the winter storm was mentioned. I'm genuinely surprised that they didn't try to beat the proverbial dead horse that was, wind turbines failed us. I'm surprised that they're admitting that it was a failure of fossil fuels and not a failure of sustainable energy without actually admitting it was a failure of fossil fuels. But they're using the winter storm as a reason, but for the wrong reasons. Or at least for the reasons that I didn't expect them to use it when I first read the article. It's just this whole, for lack of a better term in my brain, clusterfuck of this whole situation literally did nothing to show anyone that it's not, that fossil fuels can fail too. They're not this God-given energy source that anything can fail, even your precious fossil fuels that are killing the planet. So I'm just going to power through these last few paragraphs, which are all about a sentence or two long. And then we're going to finish up here because I'm getting angry, or I'm already angry. I can't tell. Abbott is likely to sign the bill to prohibit bans on gas, having announced his support for legislation that prohibits counties from restricting the use of natural gas appliances while visiting Midland in January. Senate Bill 13 also has the support of top Republican leaders in the state. Shocker. In February, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said legislation to prohibit the state from doing business with firms that boycott oil and gas companies was a priority and would pass easily, according to the Austin American-Statesman. Really, is it necessary to call someone Austin American? Austin is in Texas, which is in America, last time I checked, but I digress. I do understand that we're reading from the Texas Tribune, so just gotta pump that America into every word. House Democrats who voted no on State Bill 13 called the bill anti-free speech and argued that Texas should pursue legislation that rewards industries important to Texas rather than punishing others. That's interesting because Texas is one of those free speech states. So it does seem a little anti-Texan values to be punishing companies for exercising their free speech. And while I get what those House Democrats were saying, I do see that this also indicates that the goal of this is not only to protect their natural gas and oil, which frankly these bills seem fairly symbolic because your industry is not in direct peril just because a few companies are choosing to break ties with fossil fuels. At this moment, that is still the minority. What you're doing is you're throwing a temper tantrum because the big baddies in liberal states are hurting your little snowflake feelings. And you want to punish them to say, those companies can't do business in Texas anymore. Fuck them. When, yeah, those House Democrats make a good point. Wouldn't it be more free speech loving of you to say, hey, instead of punishing these companies for exercising their free speech by choosing to no longer support fossil fuels, how about we massively reward the companies that don't break free from fossil fuels? Not that I want to see that happen, but that would be a little more free speech, embracing of the state that's so pro-free speech. But I digress. We say we want to protect people's ability to speak their mind, but once again, we have another bill that does the opposite, said State Representative Jean Wu, Democrat from Houston. We punish companies for their thoughts and internal policies, whether they carry them out or not. We punish thought. We punish speech. I think that quote pretty much hits the nail on the head there, because these bills don't seem to be about saving the oil and natural gas industry in Texas at all. They really do seem to be more about punishing companies that are siding with states and policies that for some reason offend people in Texas. So we're going to push through this, finish it up, and then we'll wrap up my thoughts. I know I promised that a few minutes ago and I lied. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to not break in this time, but can't promise you. Pressure is increasing on Wall Street for companies and investment funds to reduce financial support for oil and gas companies due to the outsized impact the industry has on carbon emissions that contribute to climate change. Last year, Larry Fink, founder and chief executive of BlackRock, one of the world's largest investment companies, wrote to shareholders that the firm would make climate change a defining factor in its investment strategy. King said he spoke to an engineer in the energy industry who said the virtual signaling by BlackRock has changed capital availability to oil companies. Sources, please. That's all I have to say there. Senate Bill 13 will require the state's comptroller to create a list of publicly traded investment companies that boycott energy companies, which would be used by the state-run investment funds to guide disinvestments. Texas state funds identified in the bill include the $46 billion Texas Permanent School Fund, the largest such K-12 fund in the U.S., the Teacher Retirement System of Texas, which manages nearly $165 billion in investments, and the Employees Retirement System of Texas and Texas Municipal Retirement Systems of Texas, which each manage $31 billion. An amendment in the House, however, says the requirement wouldn't apply if the fund determines that doing so would be inconsistent with its fiduciary duties. So what this tells us is that they're trying to say that these companies choosing to no longer invest in fossil fuels is going to cripple the state's economy, which they don't actually give any sources or actual information to back up those claims. And based on these last couple of sentences in the article, it pretty much confirms that these bills are massive virtue signals on the state's part. And it's really just the state continuing to dig its heels in and say, la 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 la, no, 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 climate change doesn't exist. And it's just their effort to not move into the future with the rest of the world towards sustainable energy and moving away from the fossil fuels that are literally choking our planet and putting everything, including humans on that planet, in distinct peril. So I'm going to end it here. As you can tell, I get heated when I see ridiculous BS like this. But if you're interested in reading the article yourself, if you think I'm being unfair here and that Texas is 100% in the right and I'm just giving into the conspiracy and climate change is a lie, let me know in the comments section. Those comments amuse me. They genuinely do. But I'm gonna go eat a cookie at some point, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, what have you. Like, comment, subscribe, even if your comment is mean. They do give me a sick little joy. I will see you all in the next one. Thank you again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell if you would like to see more. And if you'd like to follow me on any of my other social medias, the links are down in the description below. Don't forget to check out thereptilegoth.com for all of my articles and blog posts. If you found any value in this video and you would like to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon page. That link is also in the description down below. And a special thanks goes out to my Diamond Dragon patron, Diane V. What you're doing is really helping me fund a dream here. I will see you guys all in the next one.